All right. Hello, and welcome to your e-learning day lesson. Hopefully by now you have read A Printer's Epitaph. That's pictured here. It's on page 31 of your anthology. If you haven't read it yet, I'd suggest stopping this or pausing it, going to your book and reading it, or hey, you can just read the one that's right here in front of you. So take a second and do that if you haven't already. I do want you to annotate this, and what I'm asking you to look for is really the figurative language, the device that Benjamin Franklin is using in this epitaph. So consider that, read this, and take a look for that figurative language. All right, so hopefully you've read it by now, and I'm going to just keep going here. If you read this and you thought, hey, this is an extended metaphor, then you are right. Congratulations. And so what I want to do here is a couple things. First, we're going to go through and look at how Franklin structures his epitaph and how he uses and extends his metaphor. Then I'm going to show you a few other examples of some extended metaphor epitaphs, and then you are going to write your own epitaph. And that is the e-learning day lesson. And so that is your metaphor, your extended metaphor epitaph will be due on Monday. If you're in band, it will be due on Tuesday. So here we go. So Printer's Epitaph. We've got the body of Benjamin Franklin, B. Franklin, printer. So it is a printer's epitaph, you will notice, and so that is important. That in fact, I'm going to actually pause here and switch over to my other document so I can highlight stuff. So we've got the body of B. Franklin, printer, and it is a printer's epitaph. So you'll notice that one of the lines in here is the occupation or the role that Franklin sees himself in here. Okay, and then we have the actual simile in this case, like the cover of an old book. So he is saying that his body is like the cover of an old book. All right, and now we start the extending part of the metaphor. So its contents torn out and stripped of its lettering and gilding, lies here food for worms. But the work shall not be wholly lost, for it will, as he believed, appear once more in a new and more perfect edition, corrected and amended by the author. Okay, so this last part I think is interesting and important to mention because this is actually referring to a very religious idea, really. And so I'd ask the question, were we in class, who is the author to which Franklin refers? And if you say God, then that is correct. Because what he's saying here is that his body will appear once more in a new and more perfect edition, in the same way that this is, the Christian belief that we will die and be resurrected, or appear in heaven, restored to a more perfect form, the way that God intended. Okay, so that is in a nutshell the printer's epitaph. So a couple other points here. Since you guys are going to be writing one of these, you guys want your epitaph to look similar to this. It should have the same number of lines, so that's 13 lines. But you'll notice that a few of these lines are very easy, right? So the body of B. Franklin, printer, right? Those are just a few words on each line. And the last line also, we want to have his birthday. Now, the other thing is we want to have a clear line right at the beginning there. It should be the fourth line that clearly has the simile. So like the cover of an old book. And so that is where you will make the this comparison between one thing, like the body of B. Franklin, and another thing, like the cover of an old book. Okay, let's look at another example. So here's one I wrote. It's a teacher's epitaph, all right? So the body of J. Hannah, teacher, right? Okay, that is my role. Like the trunk of a wizened tree, its limbs heavy with browning leaves, which will fall in due course, stands here a perch for many birds, but its fruit shall not rot on the ground, for it will, as Mother Earth intends, be consumed by those smaller creatures, thus perpetuating the circle of life. Okay, and then of course I have my birthday down there, so you can see just how old I really am. Okay, so a couple things. One, Again, I have the clear comparison, the simile, like the trunk of a wizened tree. And then I have all these other details that go to, that are related to a tree. So limbs heavy with browning leaves, which will fall in due course. So the tree is a perch for birds, right? And this is where the metaphor is also extending to students. So in this case, the students are birds or like birds. And then we also have the fruit shall not rot on the ground. And this is, I guess, what I'm trying to do. I don't know how successful I am. You can judge for yourself. Is that I'm trying to extend that metaphor to talk about how a teacher passes on his or her knowledge to their students, like a tree passes on its fruit, which gets eaten by birds and perpetuates a circle of life. Okay. Again, I don't know how successful this is. I think it's okay. All right. So again, here's a third example. And I am going to kind of move quickly through here because you can watch this again. You can just take your time and look at these if you want. Now, here's one I wrote about not myself, but about a public figure. So this is a second option, really, for you. If you don't want to write one about yourself, you could write one about someone famous. My only caveat there is that you do so, it must be a positive epitaph. So it must be you must portray your public figure in a positive light. So we don't want to just use it as a chance to roast a public figure. This is an epitaph, right? It should be polite and should honor the person, right? So Dave Chappelle, I think, really funny comedian. He hasn't been around for a while, so I thought, okay, here's his epitaph. Body of Dave Chappelle, comedian, like a jack in the box. Okay, there's my simile. Its springs worn out, forever turning a handle that will never jump out, lies here as a child's broken toy, right? So again, we've got a toy, a handle, springs, latch, all these things are related to a jack-in-the-box. But it should not be thrown out or given away like an old toy, for it will be repaired in a shiny new box with a brand new song, applauded and beloved by his adoring fans. Okay. So yes, I'll keep moving here. Now this one was done by Mr. Panzer, my co-teacher in this level, and he's got one for a thing. And so this is your third option. So you could do one about yourself and compare yourself to something else. You could do one about a public figure, or you could do one about something. And this one is about a videotape cassette, which Mr. Panzer and I grew up with. And now, of course, these things are basically completely dead. Technology that's no longer really made anymore. So let's look at this one. The empty building of Blockbuster video store, like the film of a worn-out VHS tape. Okay, so he's comparing here an empty Blockbuster video store to a VHS tape that store might sell. Okay, makes sense, right? And so in this case, like, these two things are really closely related. Yours don't have to be that closely related, but of course there should be, for a good simile, a connection between the thing being compared and the simile comparison. So its images blurry and faded, and I don't know if you guys have ever watched VHS tapes, but VHS tapes were notorious for being blurry and fading and breaking down. And its broken plastic shell cracked open, lies here as trash forever. But the blue and yellow memories shall not be lost. That one is kind of an allusion to the colors of Blockbuster there. So Blockbuster's trademark colors were blue and yellow. For it will appear once more in some retro revival, perfected and feeless by the nostalgic masses. Okay, again, this is a kind of an illusion here. Perfected and feeless. Blockbuster was known for charging their customers exorbitant fees. But then we also have the nostalgic masses and a retro revival, I think, pointing there to kind of the hipster trends in bringing back like retro technologies like cassette tapes and VHS tapes, records, and all that stuff. So, okay. So there are our three kind of examples. We've got a videos epitaph comparing Blockbuster to to a videotape. We've got Dave Chappelle being compared to a Jack in the Box, right? So a comedic, entertaining toy being compared to a comedian, and then a tree and a teacher. Okay, so again, you can look at these on your own with some more time. I'm going to stop talking here and let you get to work so that you will produce again your own epitaph. You do need a title. So a printer's epitaph, a teacher's epitaph, a comics epitaph, a video's epitaph. You need a title, and you need, I'd say, 12 to 13 lines of a metaphor. And remember, all the other lines. Once you say, like the cover of an old book, all these other lines have to do with a book, right? Or all these other lines have to do with a tree, or a Jack in the Box, or a VHS tape. So these are all, the extended metaphor must be of one metaphor. So you can't switch metaphors or similes in the middle there. It has to be a single metaphor that's extended throughout the whole thing. Okay? If you have questions, email me. And otherwise, good luck, and I'll see you guys next week.